Ask Kevin to call the roll.
All right. We started? Are we recording? All good? All right, Chair Harry Meyer.
Here.
Vice Chair Gary Delvaux.
Here.
Jim Blimerick has to be excused. Alderman Joe Moore.
Present.
Melanie Parma.
Here.
Matt Schuler has to be excused. And Tom Weber.
Here. And Jeff Merkis and Brian Johnson asked for a motion on the agenda sent out to everybody. Motion by Gary, second by Tom. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, carried. Approval of the minutes as reported by Lisa earlier this month.
So moved.
Tom, second by Gary.
Second.
Those in favor say aye. Opposed, carried. Appointment of election of officers. Today's the big day where we pull a Trumpy. Elect the chair and the vice chairman of the Redevelopment Authority. I'll turn the chair, the seat over to Gary as vice chair, and he can run the election.
Okay, as far as the chair, we're looking for nominations in regard to the chair of the Redevelopment Authority. I'll make a motion. Harry, I think Harry's still interested, so I'll make a motion that Harry continue to be chair.
A second.
Any other nominations? All those in favor, none? All those in favor of Harry continuing being chair, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I recuse myself.
Okay, opposed, so carried.
I'll make a nomination for vice chair for Gary Delvaux.
We have a motion for Gary Delvaux as the vice chair, a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Melanie. We have a motion and a second then to name, elect Gary Delvaux as vice chair of the Redevelopment Authority. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Appointment of the subcommittees. We'll generally follow the same subcommittees that we've had this past year.
As presented in the attachment, make that motion.
That's your motion, Tom?
Yep.
Okay, motion by Tom.
I'll second it with one question. When your chair gives us answers, some of these haven't met in a couple of years. We still need them?
Sometimes we bring, we try to be respectful of your time, so if we
Right.
only have one thing, we bring it to the agenda, to the RDA. So if you'd like to meet more, we could meet more, if you want to
No,
have
not
that.
necessarily.
You know what I mean, before, we kind of think you'd go, and unless you need to. It's nice to have them there, Gary.
Yeah, maybe right. I think we're very comfortable.
It's nice to have them there in case we need them.
It's option.
Okay, we have a motion then to reappoint the subcommittees as outlined for the administration, real estate, and community development. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. All right, number one, the communications, consideration and possible action on communication from November 7, 2016 to the Common Council by Alderman Vanderleest to set TIF assistance guidelines for the city ordinance referred back to the RDA by the council at the February 20, 2017 meeting. Recommendation received and placed on file.
All right, so this is communication going back to actually December of last year. Alderman Vanderleest to make communication about the city potentially setting their TIF assistance guidelines or setting a strict percentage by which we would enter into agreements for projects. That communication was sent simultaneously to RDA and Advisory Committee. RDA, ours went and was referred to staff while we worked on it, and then it went to Advisory. Advisory referred it to Finance. The conversation at Finance, I don't know, Alderman Moore could probably chime in on this, shifted from a policy to more of a policy on communications between staff and RDA and council. So that's on here a little bit later, just to talk about just how staff communicates with RDA and council regarding development projects. The Finance Committee did not set any type of percentage or a hard number. I think just the brief discussion we've had here before, we also decided the same thing. Staff would not be in favor of doing a hard and fast number in terms of a TIF policy. However, if the RDA so desires and would like staff to look at this further, if there was an alder who wanted to send this back to RDA to see if, just to make sure that we did not have an appetite to do that. But staff will follow your direction. Other than that, our recommendation is to receive and place on file.
I'll make that motion.
Gary, I can speak to that.
Joe?
Yeah, Harry, I was just going to say, at Finance, one of the things that was discussed was the time between approval at the RDA to when it goes to the council. And what we had asked is that it doesn't show up on that next council agenda, but the following. And that gives each alderperson time to meet with staff, hear back from their constituency, it gives us that extra several weeks to really crunch and look at these numbers. At that time, you may see some of the stuff referred back to RDA or just action taken at council. But a big part of the TIF assistance numbers was these percentages getting thrown out there and not having time to really do some due diligence on our own, you know, without the information that the RDA has going to the full council. So I think that eliminates a lot of that problem. I really am not supportive of putting any kind of a strict percentage on this because every project obviously is different, may call for something different. It also kind of hamstrings staff when they're doing some negotiations, because if you set a limit of 15%, then you know that first number that's always going to come to you is going to be 15%, and you don't really have a lot of room for negotiation anymore. Alderman Vanderleest is here, and you know, if you would want to speak to this at all, I'd be more than willing to open up the floor here for him.
What would be the maximum time gap between the RDA meeting and the next, you're saying not necessarily.
4, I think, is the,
Should be 4 weeks.
I think would be the max. That would be when we meet on a Tuesday in the summer, and we only meet once, or 6 weeks. Is it 6 weeks?
Yeah, and I guess maybe you can refresh in terms of setting a policy hard and fast about when that timing would be versus, I think one of the things we said that the RDA packets, to make sure that both hard copy and electronic copy would go out to all the council members when they went to the RDA. So that way, they would be out there at least circulating for
A little bit ahead of time.
a full week, 10 days before having to vote on them.
Because my concern is really from a development perspective, sometimes there's a time crunch when they want to get moving. I want to give the council plenty of time, but 6 weeks would be a long time.
But it also eliminates things getting referred back, or at least would hopefully bring that
I just
part
think 6
down.
weeks can be a long time from when a developer or a project wants to get moving. I'm gonna wait 6 weeks. I know, it just seems like it's a long time. But whatever, if bottom line, that's what the council wants, and then we have to adhere to it. I'm just concerned about the development of a project.
We don't do anything to inhibit it.
Right, you know, sometimes it's competition, sometimes it's a lot of reasons why they want to move quicker than 6 weeks. So you have any thoughts on that, Joe?
Just that anything that's been brought here and gets pushed to council, when we've had special meetings even,
Yes.
to try to speed something along and it goes to council, it gets referred back.
Okay, that's a good point.
It always does. If there's not enough time to vet it, it gets sent back. I mean, that's been the general.
What if we moved the RDA meetings to the week after the third week or the fourth Tuesday, giving some time between our meeting and council? Now we're in 3 weeks or so.
So if you had it the same week that council meets, basically then you'd have that extra week in there before it goes. I mean, is that,
Or even
it's a long Tuesday.
even a
but-
week after that. I mean, third
I think we've been
Tuesday.
getting in trouble. with
Council's
special
on
meetings.
Mondays now?
Tuesday.
Tuesdays?
Yeah.
Second, first?
First and third.
Okay, maybe the week from today.
Yeah. So if we were the third Tuesday,
Then in the summer it would be a month because council would only meet the third Tuesday.
Well, we've also called special council meetings.
Yeah.
I think if there was a
but
project
that
that came
puts, that
through,
poses that gap.
time was of the essence.
Meeting,
Okay.
a council meeting being sooner than 6 weeks.
And just like the RDA has met for special
Yes.
items, for
Sure.
one item, you
Yes.
know, the council has done the same.
That's something that we could discuss.
Do you,
Well-
just maybe clarification, do you want that for both, I guess, term sheets and development agreements? Or just development agreements, binding documents? I would dig at the finance notes a little bit, but just in terms of,
When we discussed it,
Primarily
it was-
the development
we were
agreement.
focusing on the development agreement more so than the
Term
term
sheet.
sheet.
Term sheets?
Okay.
Where you've got the, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
your set in stone binding terms.
yeah, okay.
All right?
I guess as far as what this item is, you know, I mean, this is some of the discussion that we had
Yeah.
that started because of this item. You know, why was this coming forward, and the lack of communication was a big part of why.
Okay, that's fair, that's fair.
I think we could receive and place this on file, but we could discuss some type of change in our schedule or whatever to help with that. Or
Yeah.
as the doctor brought up here, maybe the types of, if it's the development agreement that you think is more discussed at council, then is the, where was it? The development agreement is the most important thing that you want to see at council. That's the one that gets, okay. So
We've
that's good.
approved, we've approved term sheets, but we've continued negotiations.
But if the
once
term sheets get to you right
Right.
away, there's
Once
no
your
problem with
development
that. If
agreement
we
is
just hold the
approved.
development agreements or push those.
Right.
Well, motion second, well, place on file, but can we ask staff to come up with the next meeting, a recommendation, how we could resolve this for better timing?
Sure.
Yeah, let's put it on the next agenda.
Yeah.
Right?
Come up with your thoughts, next agenda.
We have a motion and a second, places on file?
Who was the second on that? Terry?
Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second then to receive the report and place on file. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Well, one quick comment, follow-up of that, since we were talking about TIF. Are we hoping for next month to give us an update on TIF?
Yeah, Diana and I have to sit down. There's new state legislation this year that requires us to prepare not only a report like we've been required to do, but actually convene a JRB to report out to the JRB. So right now, the assessor's office is working through all of the basically new increment. It may be another month yet, just because we want to make sure that we have the correct 1/117 values. Some of those may not be finalized till after board of review, just because, look, if somebody's going to challenge it, I don't want to put it in the wrong
Right,
value.
okay.
So
So it may not be in April. It may be in May.
no, there's going to be a sweet spot that we have to convene the JRB before July 1. But usually, I don't know if Diana is here, when Board of Review usually is like May.
Yes,
In the
May
past?
10th is the temporary, the date right now.
So it's probably going to be in that window.
Okay. One minor suggestion is that sometimes when we've gone over these, it's verbiage, talk about tip 2, tip 4, et cetera. If at the same time, if you could show those on a map, so very clearly which ones we're talking about.
Yes.
Sometimes we don't always get that. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. answer.
Okay, old business. Number 2, consideration of possible action to approve a term sheet with TMD Properties LLC for the redevelopment of GVS, the Peckle and Packing Site at 2850 University Avenue. Refer back to staff by the RDA at the February 14th, 2017 meeting.
All right. So
All right.
we are back talking about the GVS/Packerland packing site. This is out on University Avenue, just east of the New Festival Foods Quick Trip Shopping Center under construction. We've been talking about this this year and had a term sheet proposed. And basically went through the process and was sent back for some further investigation and analysis and negotiation. I think staff, I think some members of council, members of the RDA have been working with the developer to find a proposal that kind of meets the guidelines. I think some direction was given by the RDA in terms of what they would like to see on the property. I think the developer has met most of those suggestions and has come back with a new proposal. Ken, if you want to forward one more slide. It's on its side just because it's easier to fit in here. But on this map, it is tilted, so north is to the left. So that's University Avenue running through. And as you'll see, two things, and the developer's here and can speak a little bit about this. Just an overview, reducing the number of units from 364 to 322 and diversifying the
Now,
units.
those are apartment units?
They are still rental units. So reducing from 364 to 322, and then diversifying the stock of units, and that 224 of those will be urban loft style, so geared more towards younger professionals or those who want that up-down. 98 will be senior focused, generally one-story flats. They're still going to have the urban, design that we've talked about before, just in terms of the layout. There'll be some different designs and different markets that the developer is going after. The plan is then for 4 phases rolled out over a period of 4 to 5 years. Per some of the recommendations here, reserving, carving out some space at the north west corner of the property, which is adjacent to another privately owned parcel on University Avenue and Rothie Street, for potential future development of something else, whether that gets assembled into a larger commercial site, office site, some other retail mix in there. That is not part of this agreement right now. With that, we looked at then TIF incentive and renegotiating. I think there was some pretty strong support for getting that building down and in doing some of the site prep. So we upped the project grant to $1.5 million on the front end. But then the pay-go reimbursement on the back end, we reduced to 50%. And then all in, again, the pay-go is paid out after our debt service obligations are covered. The total TIF incentive will be the lesser of $4 million or otherwise qualified expenses. With that, in the term sheet, I did notice a typo, and hopefully this can count under the minor legal and technical changes. The number values were written out numerically. There's one or two cases where I think it says 50%, like in C1. Right before the wording says 65%. The correct amount is that this should be $1.5 million upfront with a 50% pay-go on the back. So we'll make those revisions to this document before going to council. I just wanted to clarify in case any of you have noted that in the term sheet that the wording did not match up with the number, but it is 1.5 up front, 50% on the back, and total cap of $4 million. So with that, I mean, I can answer any questions. The developer is also here, who can also discuss more of the changes that they've made, or if you have any other additional questions.
Phase one, we're gonna do the 1.5 up front with demolition and asbestos, et cetera. How much of the investment is in phase one?
I can discuss a little bit and whether you want to do this open or closed session in terms of some projections of what our assessed values may be and how much value. In short, the base value in here is $758,000. We feel in phase one, we're going to be coming up to about $2.5 million of increment, and then an additional 5.9 in phase two. And again, I can kind of go through and discuss some of the projections. I think we're still talking about $68,000 a unit, despite the design differences. Ultimately, they're going to come out about that range. And then just in terms of, again, if we want to negotiate that debt service and then how much they would really have to do in order to guarantee us that payment on the debt service.
Kevin, I expect the developer has agreed to these revisions that are being presented?
Correct. They are here, right here?
Yes.
Yes. I won't speak for them, but
No,
yes, that's
right.
why we're here.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Should we open the meeting for,
I'll make the motion to open the floor.
motion by Joel, second by
I'll second.
Melanie, to open the floor for public discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
The authority may convene in closed session pursuant to section.
No, opening the floor.
Just-
Oh, we're just opening the floor, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wake me up when I get this.
Like that?
Good afternoon again.
Definitely,
Well, Kevin did a good job of explaining our revised proposal. We've heard some of the comments that were given in the last two meetings, and Tom and Joe had an opportunity to meet us out at the site to get a better grasp of the size of the structures and the site and kind of what we're trying to accomplish. And there seems to be a lot of support for, an agreement for, bringing down the building and trying to, get the site to a greenfield site, if you want to call it that. And so, we've, kind of reduced some of our back-end costs, moved them forward, trying to, get to a higher number. And I think the 1.5 number, I thought too large, but that number is much larger than 1.5 to take down the building. I think we're pushing close to $3 million if you're adding everything into the deal. So, I think this is our compromise, trying to get that level playing field with a greenfield site to repurpose the site or repurpose the highest and best use of the site. So. If I'm here to answer any questions.
Todd, how many stories would they be?
Two of the structures would be 3 stories. I mean, they're some are 3 stories, but, they only have 2 sets of stairs because inside the second floor, you'll have an internal stairwell on a loft basis. So in essence, they are 3-story structures. We've got a lot of flexibility in our floor plates and our floor plans. We'll have some that are true 3-story buildings, some that have internal staircases making them lofts.
Is most of the parking underneath the structures?
Yeah, well, those are typically 16-unit buildings. They'll have 16 garages on the lower level, a drive-in. And there's also garages across the way from most of the buildings.
Todd, what's your timeline? How long do you think it would take to raise those buildings, and how soon would you get started on the new construction then?
Well, as you can see, the phasing, our third phase, isn't for like our third year. So, our phase 1, phase 2 is pretty much parking lot right now. So I think we could, simultaneously, build while we're raising the buildings. I don't want to do that, get too ahead of ourselves, but, raising that structure, and the, some of the environmental asbestos abatement, the site contouring, I mean, we might be able to start in that lower level, but the site has to be, cut and filled, so, we're, utilizing as much fill on site as we can. So, realistically, I'd say if we could be building in 6 months, if I get the approval today, I think I'd be doing pretty well.
About a year for building it?
We'll have our first, 60 units up in, 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Any other,
I'd like to hear from the alderman. I'd like to hear from Dave.
The local alderman?
Yeah.
Dave?
Well, I do like what is proposed here. I think that when you look at the phased-in approach, it makes a whole lot of sense. What drives developers nuts, frankly, is when the city has plans for development in a particular way of an area, and then after the developers do a lot of work to try to prepare something that's consistent with the city's vision, then all of a sudden there are issues with it. When you look at the University Avenue plan, and Todd DeVillers, as well as Nick Allard from Tunin Company, I think Joe Moore was on there, I was on there, on the committee that prepared the University Avenue plan. It talks about this as a catalyst site for redevelopment, and this type of housing, a higher-end multifamily housing, is something that was recommended. Now, and also if you look at the TIF plan, the TIF 18 for this area, it identifies a need for more housing, rental housing on the east side. I know there's been discussion about, can the market support more? Well, the studies all indicate that they can, and by phasing it in over 4 or 5 years, like is proposed here, I do think it is a reasonable approach. I guess, I think that it's come a ways from the original proposal, and I think it is a positive development for this area. When you look at anything that comes before the Redevelopment Authority or the City Council, you have to look first whether it's a desirable thing. Well, I think it is. You've got an abandoned meatpacking company here, contaminated site. You've got a developer that's willing to invest about $22 million, maybe even more by the time it's finished, in cleaning up the site and building what I think is desirable housing. If this was as low-income housing or something that would create problems for city services or government services in general, it might be a different thing. But I think there is a lot of demand for higher-end rental properties. I know one out on Huron Road, right across the road in Bellevue, across the line in Bellevue, the Huron Grove Apartments. Those things, they have a waiting list. They've been leasing those things as quickly as they come on the market, and the rents for those go up to something like $950 a month. So I don't think this is unrealistic at all. I think it does fit in line with the city's plans, and the second thing you need to do is look at whether the city, what's requested of the city in terms of the TIF assistance is reasonable or not. I think it is. I know there were some statements made in an earlier meeting that this is setting a new precedent because the city's never used TIF money for residential development. Well, that's frankly not true. Most of the residential properties that we've used TIF money for are in the downtown. But in my opinion, this site is every bit as attractive and in need of redevelopment as the sites downtown. And, no offense to the downtown folks, but not everybody wants to live in the downtown. And I think this is an attractive site near Baird Creek that will be quite popular for people that are looking for rental, higher-end rental properties. A lot of what's going on the east side in Green Bay is, people who are retiring, selling their single-family homes, and looking for higher-end apartments in the urban area. And that's what this is offering. So I think there's been a lot of planning done, and this is consistent with the city plans, so I'm supportive of it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
I am John Vanderleest. I represent District 11 on the west side. I think this is a good project, but I think that the costs are quite high. I think if we go with the 1.5 million for the demolition costs, and that turns to a green site, I think that's more than fair what the city's offering on that end. As far as more TIF assistance, I think it's really not necessary. This kind of project is a moneymaker as far as once it's up and going. It's not like it's a hardship on that site. When they start renting the properties, it's going to be generating a profit. And I think if the city puts in 1.5 million for the demolition costs, I think that's more than fair. And anything more, we're just sending the wrong message to developers in the city of Green Bay and throughout the area that come in. A lot of people want a lot of assistance. Is it really necessary? Maybe some. And in this case here, with the demolition of the buildings, I think it's necessary, that part, for the demolition part. But as far as going above and beyond with a lot of extra TIF money, I think the city of Green Bay can spend the money better elsewhere on other projects and things. But I think this project would be a green light regardless. If they get any assistance from the, beyond the demolition, I think it'll be a go site regardless. So I don't feel that the city should be investing any more than the 1.5 million. And that's my thoughts on the project. And I think it just, if you look at the property, it's a pretty exclusive property once it gets leveled. And I don't know what they paid for the property. I don't know what the cost of, but once them buildings are level, the property increases in value immediately. Mm-hmm. So that's my thoughts on that. And
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Motion to return regular to business?
So
Motion second, then return regular to business. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, can I make a couple comments?
Yep.
First, Dr. Bonk, what is the projected assessed value once complete?
So value once complete, projected a new value of, based on the $68,000 a unit, would be $21,896,000. Base value of $758,800 on it. So incremental value would be $21,400,000 $137,200.
Slightly over 18%.
Correct. So
Approximately 18% is what the TIF ask would be on the assessed value of the project.
if you looked at, it would be about 19% of the incremental value, 18% of the total value, and based on numbers that we've received in terms of their construction costs for the project, those construction costs are going to be about $40 million. So we're talking then 10% of the construction cost. So, and this goes back to the discussion about percentages and where we're at. I just want to make sure everyone's clear in terms of the value that we are talking about the money going in doesn't always translate to money out. So just those percentages, those are our assumptions.
Okay. I would say, and Mr. Villers mentioned that Tom and I, went out. We went for a good 3 hours and discussed kind of some different terms that we were looking for on our end. Myself trying to represent the council and what I had been hearing from council members. Tom and his experience and being a commercial real estate agent and investor. I thought that we had a good discussion. We had discussed having more of a defined buffer between where Phase 4 and this existing properties down here is, and being able to go out to the site and see what the plan was, walking around. And it is multi-level terraced kind of area out there. It's not just tearing buildings down for site prep on this. There's going to be things like your water retention is going to be huge. However, that's going to be determined to alleviate any kind of flooding issues that you're going to have from a sea of pavement up above. That buffer was important. Having more enhanced green space based off the first renderings we saw, it was a lot of concrete and a lot of buildings and not a lot of green. So we had that discussion. Less back end on the TIF, on the financial side. We would like to see it eliminated. I'm with Alderman Vanderleest. When this first came, I was like, no, this is way too much of an ask. I think going out and touring it really did a lot to kind of open our eyes to what best use on that site is. We also looked for more defined alternative housing instead of 364 units of rental crammed into that 30 acres. I think they did that with the 98 units of, what we were referring to as assisted or semi-assisted living, with having, elevators inside and underground parking and having the, underground covered parking, having, like a community area, whether it's that age 55 and up, so Tom can move there one day or whatever it might be. But, they came back and they fixed that and defined that. And then also, which I think was probably my biggest ask, was to delay any action on Phase 5 down in this bottom here for some future use. And the fact that they're willing to hold off on that and see if something more commercially where you might get some more assessment dollars, per acre that might add the value there. I think that means a lot. I think there's also an opportunity down the road with UW Green Bay with their goals of expanding to an enrollment of 10,000 people. There is going to be a need for housing near campus and on that east side. I think 18%, when we always had these discussions about TIF over the last couple months, about capping it, it was like, look, there should be a cap of 10 to 15% and in an extreme situation more. Well, we're at 18% and I think we've all agreed that there's an extreme situation here. So I think this falls within that guideline as well. Tom, I think I kind of covered everything there?
I think you covered everything. Of course, I think one of the things that we recognized when we went out there was what we originally saw, and then when we got out there was something different.
Right.
I don't think it was emphasized. Well, first of all, we didn't have this buffer zone down here, looking at that. Plus the 55 or older, the senior housing really kind of got lost in the design and in the numbers. So I think those elements plus some of the added green space. Yeah. And I would concur with the alderman. It wasn't a matter of the project not being something that fit in. It was, I guess, a tweak and maybe a little bit more knowledge and understanding of what the project, the end game was going to look like for us and for the future. So, yeah, I think it's
Right, any further questions? As for motion?
Is there any need for a closed session discussion here?
I don't think
You know, I
so.
would just ask if anybody has any
Anything
questions
you
on the
wanted to
terms that
share?
require that.
No, I think we've covered a lot. There's nothing else at this point to disclose.
Well, that being said, then I would make the motion that we approve the term sheet.
A second.
Motion by Joe, second by Tom, then to approve the term sheet as outlined. Those in favor say aye.
And that wouldn't be as outlined, it would be with the corrections that need to be made that.
Yeah.
Minor technical changes that.
Yeah.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 3, consideration of possible action, approve the term sheet with MKE View LLC for redevelopment of Whitney School at 215 North Webster Avenue, 916 Pine Street, 908 Pine Street, 902 Pine Street, 218 North Van Buren Street, and 214 North Van Buren Street. Another tax parcels.
A lot of parcels.
Go ahead.
They're doing the block,
Yeah.
or most of it.
Most.
So we have Milwaukee View. You may recognize them. They've been also
Shower
talking with us
Schumacher.
about Shower Schumacher, absolutely. They have also been diligently working on the Whitney School building, former elementary school. Bell Health was last in there a few years ago.
Has that been empty for a while now, Kevin?
Yeah.
5 years?
2013.
Okay, so yeah, 4, almost 5.
Okay.
And what they're looking to do is take, and the developers are here, they can go more into this than I can, just an overview. Taking this block, you've got the school and then all the parking lots to the west. There's the chapel and single-family home on the southwest corner of this block. This is not part of that. Can you take forward one more piece? So the southwest corner, that's not part of this. The project involves taking the school itself and doing historic renovation that would result in 23 market rate apartment rental units. These would be mostly a combination of 1, 2 bedrooms, and then again retaining historic features within, including some terrazzo floors, and what I feel are also the best bubblers in the city of Green Bay. They are elegant, just marble, and said as long as those stay, I
Can
think
we
it's
just
supporting
make
the
the motion
project,
now?
right? And then they would like to also add 17 residential townhomes. These will be owner-occupied townhomes that will ring the perimeter of the parcel here. So with that, this hits a lot of our objectives from a city perspective in terms of, adding new structures that use the latest code. We're investing in a neighborhood, and from time to time, Navarino's had above average police calls, so we're putting some, investment and new product into that neighborhood. In terms of, the health, like the JVS site, we're taking away a lot of imperviousness in that parking lot, putting in a lot of green space, putting in a great courtyard in the middle. Really something that I think fits in with the scale and tone of the neighborhood, the townhome concept. It's not downtown, but it's not, quite out in the suburbs. It's a good mix and transitional use. And then, we're really protecting this historic structure. It's a great structure, historically significant, in terms of the building, but also, I think a lot of attachment for people in Green Bay. So in terms of the ask before you today, in terms of putting their package together, I think they're going to be looking at historic tax credits and some additional financing options. With that, there still is a gap, and they're requesting assistance from the city. What is being proposed here is two-part. One, this is not in a TID district. So part of the request would be asking the ARB, which would be a separate item, to expand to District 6, which is Navarino, to cover this property. And then the incentive would be an 80% pay-go reimbursement. Basically, the TID, Navarino TID, was created in 2001, so it expires in 2008. So although 80% may seem aggressive, there's only 10 years left in that TID. So the payback, depending on when these projects would be phased in. Right now, we estimated that the apartments and 6 townhomes would come online and or be done in 2018, another 6 townhomes in 2019, and the remaining 5 townhomes in 2020. So in terms of the TID taxes and the incentive, really we'd be looking at payment somewhere of 8-9 years of payback. So with that, the Navarino TID is a well-performing TID. I think there's a little bit of a buffer here that allows us some additional funds to go back into the TID. Again, we've talked about other projects in Whitney, seasonal improvements, use some money in Whitney Park to make improvements there. Again, things we've talked about, lighting, other pedestrian enhancements, other things that, help Whitney and the Navarino neighborhood. With that, we think it's a very solid project and would recommend approval. Once again, the developers here, they can discuss a little bit more of their concept and target markets.
Kevin, who owns that building now?
The Mako family, I believe, owns it right now.
Well, okay, thanks, Kevin. Should we open the meeting for public discussion?
Yeah, I think we should.
Motion by Gary, second by
I'll second.
Joe? Melanie. Okay, Melanie.
It sounded like her.
Yeah.
Okay, those in favor say aye.
All right.
Carried.
I'd just like to have the developer tell us a little bit more that maybe Kevin might have missed.
Yeah, I'm curious what the robust green space is.
Mr. Chair, hello again.
Hi, hello.
Anaj Rastogi, and I'm Lindsay Bovine from Milwaukee View.
Yes,
We're gonna put you on the agenda every month, huh?
Yeah,
that's great.
we've seen a lot of this town. We have some favorite places.
Oh, good.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So we've put together a brief PowerPoint presentation to give you a little more photographic display, drawing display of the project. Although Kevin did a good job of explaining it, so some of it will be redundant, but we'll go through it quickly.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice looking building.
That's a 1920 postcard.
Wow.
Yeah, we just kind of found it online. So this is really the reason why we came to Green Bay. It's been about a year in development that we've been thinking through this project and working on it, and finally, come to you today with hopefully what you think is a well thought out plan. So really the proposed development, as Kevin explained, is we're trying to develop this entire block and do market rate multifamily development. In addition, the second part is the for sale townhomes. So the first part would be the historic elementary school, which would be transformed into 23 apartments. It's about 50-50, 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms. And then historic tax credits and a TIF are vital to the success of the project, and we can answer questions as to why that is. So really where we sit right now is, you can see we've labeled the Whitney School on the bottom, and that's in the pink. And then that's about 4 blocks away from the downtown district. When we were looking at this project, we were just really amazed that this was a beautiful asset sitting 4 blocks from downtown. It had really great walkability to the downtown district, and also just a beautiful park next door as well, the Whitney Park. And then also kind of alluding to what we saw next door, we saw that Garrett Bader had done the nice townhomes and kind of been a pioneer in that area. And that really opened up our thought process as to what could be done on the vacant land and kind of continuity within the neighborhood. So this is the Whitney School. As you can see, a lot of vacant land and then the real primary historic asset. And right next to it is a CVS, which is just another kind of good amenity for anybody living there. Investment to date, we just kind of wanted to let you know what we've been doing for the past year, because that's a lot of time. Weekly site visits, architectural drawings and plans, a lot of legal due diligence, financial due diligence, third-party market studies, environmental phase 1 and 2 with the help of the city, historic designation application and research. There was a lot of work done on that. Meetings with city officials about planning and zoning, entering construction firms, selective demolition, which I can explain a little bit more later, and conducting an RFP with general contractors, which is in the process right now. So one of the big hurdles that we faced with this project is to get to the historic tax credits. This was not already a historic building, and I think that's why maybe it was not a doable project for other developers who may have looked at this project. So really what we had to do is get it on the National Registry, which is quite a bit of a process in itself. So what we did is, well, I'll kind of explain the background. In order to qualify for historic tax rights, a building must first be put on the National Registry of Historic Places. Historic registration relies on current historic integrity of the building. The historic schools are judged upon corridors, that you've kind of retained that big open corridor. The beautiful windows, that you've retained those windows. And then the auditorium, that it's not, spliced and diced in half. So, for the Whitney School, we, went to SHPO and asked these questions and the likelihood of the nomination. And they said to us that Whitney School would be denied for pre-approval because the windows have been modernized, the hallways were obstructed by rooms, and the auditorium was altered with a new third floor. So kind of right away we knew this is a no-go project, but we wouldn't be here with you today if that's where it ended. So we found in the building some original plans, some beautiful hand-drawn plans, I think by Berner and Schober. So we kind of poured through those, looked at just beautiful things, saw terrazzo floors, saw the original marble, what kind of Kevin was saying, the beautiful bubblers that are still there. And we went back to the building to try to figure out how to make it, back to kind of its original self. So this is, over here what you're looking at is a really cold day, I think in October. I can't remember now, but we were there doing some selective demolition because we wanted to get the building nominated. So what we did was we started taking out those rooms that were obstructing the hallways. So, and we are kind of hands-on, so it was us doing
With
it.
the permission of the colonel.
Yes, oh yeah.
Small detail.
I should.
That was the next question.
Kids in the neighborhood.
We did it right. I don't know why.
Yeah, I should be. So that revealed some beautiful terrazzo floors and then those staircases, which is essential for the historic nomination. And then, of course, the bubblers. And really what you see at the end is the end product of a wide open hallway. And then we had SHPO come through again and they said, yeah, you guys can do this. We kind of got the, I don't know what to call it, the light approval. So we're still going through the arduous process of getting it nominated and doing all the part 1 and part 2, but
How long a process do you think that would take?
The nomination?
Yeah.
Well, it's in process right now. I think it usually takes like, I don't know, 8 or 9 months.
Oh.
It's a while. So we had to get started a little while ago. And then there's, of course, part 1 and part 2.
And we just submitted for part 1 and part 2, and that takes 60 days.
60 days, yeah.
And so we expect to have approval within 60 days.
Yeah. So over here, we want to just kind of quickly take you through what the proposed development is to the historic building. We're keeping the integrity of the hallways. We're keeping the integrity of the classrooms. So really the classrooms are what are being transformed into the apartments. And you'll see, the 1-bedrooms fit in the smaller classrooms. And they're still, I think that's maybe 800 square feet. And then the 2-bedrooms are about 1,000. And then this is the first floor, so the ground floor. And at the end of it, you can see like a lounge area for tenants that opens up to a courtyard. And then the second floor is a very similar layout with the exception that there was an auditorium at the kind of jutted out area, and that'll be 4 bedrooms, 4 1-bedrooms. And then there's a little amenity of a small workout room. And then this is the top floor, and the really only difference here is that the auditorium space above there is now 2 bedrooms, so larger units. This is kind of, we're not trying to say that this is exactly what something will look like, but we just want to give you a sort of feel and what our desire is for the project. We're trying to create kind of that open feeling of a hallway, so kind of leaving that integrity of a schoolhouse and the schoolhouse charm. So I think you explain it best. What do you say about the lighting?
with the low pendant lighting, because it's the height of the ceiling, and the divided light windows on doors and windows is important, but, so that'll keep the feel of the schoolhouse.
And kind of retaining that feel, again, these are mood paintings just to kind of show you what our intended, purposes or intended design processes, but hopefully having kind of like school cubby-looking, not closets, but storage spaces, and then kind of little modernized, eclectic kitchens, and keeping to that subway tile, and that's not a terrazzo floor, but we would have terrazzo floors. And then for the common area, maybe doing some sort of divided seating for the hallways. Okay, so that was the first part, the Whitney School apartments. And then now the townhomes. So the townhomes, we're looking to do 17 market rate townhomes. These would be for sale, and a TIF is vital for this. Kevin already kind of explained, there's a common area in the middle, homing dab or robust, I think, as the other alderman said, robust green space, and have the townhomes ring around that. So this, again, are mood paintings or pictures. We're trying to just convey that this is what our hope is, but doing that in the common area. Some seating. And also, the reason why we wanted to have this common area instead of just loading it with parking is we want to also kind of create some connectivity to Whitney Park and be a little bit more subtle in regards to that development. I mean, right now it sits as a parking lot, and then you have Whitney Park. So it'd be nice if we could do for sale townhomes, create some sort of just better aesthetics in the neighborhood, and have the connectivity of the green space. This is more
Volumetric, I wouldn't rely on this for finishes necessarily, but more the volume of the building, so they'll be relatively flat, but this gives you an idea of what they might look like before you apply finishes to them.
And they're in groups in 3s and 2s, so just kind of how you can fit them into that space. There's 2 designs at the moment, so there's a garage, and then living space, a half basement, and then upstairs there's a 3-bedroom with a patio connected to that upstairs space. And this is just a similar layout, but just kind of different dimensions. Again, some kind of mood paintings. So the Whitney School retains to its historic integrity, while these are quite different in juxtaposition. They're a lot more modern in nature. So maybe we're using, brick, wood, steel, trying to be a little bit more of the modern eclectic look that people are so used to on Pinterest today. So, kind of different here. European sort of cabinets. And really, the top right is what we're hoping, not exactly that, but just that outdoor space above your house. I think Kevin has kind of said or indicated the economic impact, but I just wanted to go over it again. What we're looking at is the Whitney School Apartments and Whitney Town Homes will be about a $10 million investment aggregate in the Green Bay community. Currently, I believe the assessed value stands at a little over 700,000. So really the end result would be the assessed value is in excess of 6 million, I believe, and that yields an increment of over 5 million. And then kind of related to that, right now it's sitting as a vacant piece of land, well, not entirely, but just that portion. We're hoping that there's some construction jobs that are created, of course, but then really more importantly in our eyes, more residents and consumers downtown. People who want to go to the Attic Coffee Shop, which we've been to quite often now. And then also, hopefully it spurs up redevelopment of surrounding blighted property in that area. In regards to project schedule, we, as you can tell, are in the development stage, but we've made a lot of great headway on that. What we're looking at the moment is a fall closing of the transaction itself, meaning the financial closing, and then we'd be looking at beginning construction in fall. And we're working out the details of, how it really begins and what phases with the townhomes. We're hoping that by summer/fall of 2018, we'd have the apartments finished and a portion of the townhomes. That's it.
So would the school be done first?
Yes, it certainly will start first. Whether or not what we start in terms of townhomes is really kind of the question, but the school will definitely start first. And we would like to start the 6 units that are closest to Webster on both sides of the school. So we get the entire end that fronts on Webster would be finished immediately. That's in an ideal world, and I think we can do that.
The TIF involvement only pertains to the townhouses, is that right?
No, the TIF is both.
Okay. And I probably saw this, but the exterior of the townhouses, are they all unique? I mean, that's what made Garrett Bader is so successful in my mind. Everyone looks different. I didn't catch that. That the outside?
That's exactly what we're trying to do as
Okay.
well. And we have to work with National Park Service to use or to take the integrity of the historic school and mimic that somewhat in the other buildings around it. That's very important. They'll look at that. Even though they have no jurisdiction necessarily over the townhome construction,
Right.
they're going to be very particular about how they look. And that's why we did the particular size and shape that we did, so it
Yeah.
doesn't compete with the historic school. And our finishes, even though this is kind of a kit of parts, the 2 kinds of townhomes in groups of 3 and 2, they're virtually all the same, but they're cleverly pushed in and out with different finishes and materials. I think you'll have a reaction that they're quite different, actually. Each one's quite different.
Between the two, project A and B, I guess, is that an abandoned alleyway?
It is currently,
Or is it-
it is a public alleyway right
Okay,
now.
it's public.
So we've met and discussed this through our tech review team. In terms of utilities, we would be able to vacate a portion or all of that alley. What we'd have to do is work with the property owners on the bottom left, just to make sure that they could have ingress, egress to their property from any alley that would be vacated. But there would be basically from north, which is Pine Street,
Yep.
down through the property, we should be able to vacate most of that, if not all of that.
Because they'll need that for access, obviously, into their parking as well.
Correct.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
You're
Very good.
welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
As for motion, return to the business.
So moved.
Motion by Gary, second by
Second.
Joe. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those carried.
I like it.
All right.
Can I just- oh,
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. I don't know the specifics, so, but I do know that over the years, we at Somerville have done feasibility and facility studies on this buildings for different organizations. And always the outcome is that it still has sat vacant, right? So, I mean, I think it's exciting to see that somebody's willing to, go through the effort, whether it be the historical, nomination, those sort of efforts to, make this a viable project. Because it's a big building, sitting down there vacant.
Your
Yeah.
observation is structurally sound?
I didn't do the feasibility study, but yeah, from what, I think it really more lies in, the accessibility and just the amount of work that needs to be done, again, depending on what that function is.
I like the project.
Just have
Joe?
Go ahead, Joe.
You can go. Age before beauty.
Your turn, Doug.
But remember, beauty was a horse.
I don't get that reference.
I'll talk to you later. Yeah, no, what was my question? Was there, and I actually meant this for the developer when we were open, so a nod of the head would work, I guess. The residential parcel, that single building, was there an attempt to acquire that into the project or not? Not next to the residential home?
Not
To the church.
not as
No,
part
no
of this
attempt.
project.
It's next to the church, right? There's a church and then that's a separate.
Yep.
right?
Church is on the corner.
Yeah, and
then
the single
residence
family
is
and the
next door.
garage is around the back. But there was no real attempt to acquire that.
No.
Okay.
All right,
Okay,
I like the project.
go.
all right.
Go ahead,
So
Joe.
to crunch some numbers, Dr. Baum,
Yeah.
right now, there is an assessed value on all of those parcels combined of $16,000. Approximately?
The parcels. When you add in the school, it's 718,900. But if you just are looking at the parcels, yes, it's about 16,000.
Of actual real estate taxes paid.
Oh, real estate taxes paid.
That's 16,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, with a value of 718.
And that's to all
Property, yes,
municipalities, that's
yep,
not Green Bay's
yep.
portion?
Correct.
Okay, so Green Bay's portion, and that's about $6,000.
That is correct.
And if, so this of course has to go before the JRB to expand the TIF.
Correct.
And if that happens, that TIF, by the time this project is actually on the tax roll, is only going to have about 8 years left?
Correct. The TID expires in 2028 right now. It's a 27-year TID. It's created in 2001, expires in, 2027 is the last year.
So what is the total TIF ask over the 8 years?
So
About
based-
8?
Our assumptions were that, and we communicated this with the developer, is that they would do the apartments in 6 homes in 2018, 6 more homes in 2019, and 6 more homes in 2020. Based on that, and ultimately, and we've talked about this with owner-occupied projects, we've got a pretty firm value on the apartments, 2.3, 2.5 million, but the townhomes, they're gonna be assessed what they sell for.
Right.
So if we can look at the range of like 235, I think was what we estimated, all in, then that equates to what the developers have talked about, an incremental value or total value of all this, about $6.2, $6.3 million. So the increment then is about 5.5, 5.6. Depending on that, again, that timing, so there's a little bit of flexibility here. It would generate about $1 million in taxes. 80% of that would be about $800,000. Again,
Over
if
8 or
they-
9 years.
If they do things faster, if they get more online, or it sells or appraises higher, that will be greater, but then again, so will the amount be for the TID.
Okay. Fully developed, then we're looking at $55,000 annually to the city of Green Bay, $140,000 to all the taxing entities.
Correct.
And then I guess my only other question then, because again, that brings our percentage back down to that 18% range.
So to run through just the same numbers I did with the other one, and you, it's, if those numbers hold true, and again, the percentages will probably stay the same because it's that 80% that's locked in. It would be 15% of the incremental value they create, 13% of the total value they create, and about 8% of their total usage costs to build this.
15%. So then my only other question is, with Garrett's project, I believe there was some home funds or something. Is that an option to eliminate any percentage of the TIF in this, or CDBG funding or neighborhood enhancement funding to reduce the $800,000 basically ask? That amount could be reduced by offsetting with CDBG or neighborhood enhancement?
It's been discussed, and I can let the developer answer. I think one of the things that does come with the home block grant funds is income restrictions on being able to sell the unit, and I think they're interested in selling these at market rate. That's
correct.
yeah.
I like that better.
Neighborhood enhancement toward any kind of site prep? That's just bonded dollars that
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
that's
the council
the
has to
purview
say
of
on where
this.
that money
Yeah,
goes, but
yeah.
I think that if there was something proposed, it'd be worth looking at, even if it reduced that TIF ask by $100,000, to put $100,000 of a bonded neighborhood enhancement into some part of the project,
Sure.
be it the green space, some kind of a portion here to do the offset. I think I'm okay with the term sheet, I just think there could be a little bit more discussion once this term sheet, once we take action on that, before we go to a development agreement.
With that in mind, I make a motion to approve the term sheet with Joe's comments.
We have a motion from Gary to approve the term sheet as outlined. Second.
I'll second.
Joe, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. All set. Number 4, consideration of possible action to purchase 525, 531, 613 South Broadway. Kevin, you're up.
All right, this one deals with some properties along South Broadway, and for this one, I would recommend that we go into closed session to discuss where we're at in terms of negotiations and a potential purchase of these properties.
Okay. Tom, you want to read your script?
Yeah, let's do this before. The authority may convene in closed session pursuant to section 1985 1T Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the sale of historic properties, investing in public funds. or
Not historic, public. Public properties.
Public funds.
You said historic.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Okay, close.
Just so you know.
I heard it start.
Okay. Revise that. Public funds or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The authority may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 1985-2 Wisconsin statutes to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
Call the roll, Kevin?
All right. Harry Meyer?
Yes.
Gary Delvaux? Here. Joe Moore?
Yes.
Melanie Parma? Tom Weber?
First one here.
Joe Moore?
Yes.
Melanie Parma? Tom Weber. I'm just trying to remember like the order that they're in on here, so I do the exact same way. I know your names, I mean, I'm new, but not that.
You have to report each one.
During the closed session, the RDA and staff discussed some prices of acquisition of property effective with the shipyard project, and we instructed staff to continue negotiations and report back at the April meeting. And take a motion on this number four.
Well, this is on 5.
Did you want a motion on four, just to?
Just
direct
move
staff?
to continue as discussed in closed session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second then for staff to continue action on the purchase of the 1, 2, 3 sites in the South Broadway area. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Number 5, consideration of possible action to purchase 621 South Jackson Street using neighborhood enhancement funds. I'll bet you Cheryl's up.
Oh, we do need to go into closed session.
You're kidding.
Sorry.
Motion.
What is this?
So it's a property we're looking at, we have some liens against it, it's going into for a share sale, and we need some advice on negotiation on whether we want to go after it and values.
Make a motion to go into closed
Motion
session.
closed. Second.
Language again?
No, he's got to read the roll.
No, I got it.
You gotta read the job first.
Which one?
We're all trying to understand. The authority may convene in closed
Sorry,
session
yes.
pursuant to section 1985 1 Wisconsin statutes
Sorry.
for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The authority may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 1985 2 Wisconsin statutes to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
Could we, Council, could we have discussed both of them in closed session and report back on both of them individually? I mean, I'm just asking, versus, hit or no.
Action has to be taken on each item in open session, I think.
Well, I understand that, but could we talk about both of them?
I don't think we can.
I don't know, that's why I'm asking Council.
That's a good question.
So I will double check and have an answer for you. by
Just out of curiosity.
Anybody out there?
Theo has a pair just like them. We were together. Go out.
During the closed session, the RDA and the staff discussed the possible action to purchase the building at 621 South Jackson Street, and we instructed the staff to proceed with the negotiations.
I'll make that motion to go ahead and proceed as directed in closed session.
Give a motion for Joe, second for Gary, then to proceed with the action to purchase 621 South Jackson using neighborhood enhancement funds. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Bills, consideration of possible action for approval of first payment to H.A. Martin and Son in the amount of $13,074.40 for contract KI Convention Center first floor reflected ceiling.
It's the final payment for the ceiling they placed above the area between the Hampton and the Hyatt.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are they done? They're working on it 2 days ago.
Well, they were, right, we have had 2 incidences with high wind
Yeah.
that have actually buffed them a little bit. But they're actually, H.A. Martin's been very, very good. They've been out there the same day to re-secure them, so.
So this is last bill then? Okay.
The final payment.
Looks good.
It does. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty sharp.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to.
Melanie, second by
Second, let's pay them.
Joe. Those in favor say aye. Motion is second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Consideration of possible action on acceptance of financial report and check register as provided.
Maybe we should hold for next meeting.
Motion by Tom.
This is not-
second
No,
by-
that's not the motion. I withdraw my motion.
You're in.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Tom, second by Gary, then approve the financial report and check register as provided. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Informational, directions report and project updates. 150 North Maple Street, Maple Avenue update.
That's Ken.
That would be me, yeah.
All right.
So 159 North Maple,
Is that the house on the corner?
that is the house
Yeah.
on the corner, yep. We purchased it on the 27th of February, so we do control it now. We've had a meeting with, on Broadway, the Fort Howard neighborhood, president and vice president, and members of the Historical Preservation Committee. And just kind of started figuring out how we're gonna go forward with the property. And, some of the things, we ran into, we're looking at getting a site survey right now, just to, and actually I have it scheduled already. We hired that out. Just to look at some of the site constraints that we have before we actually come forward with a.
Do we go with a full survey? Can't we just do
Well, we're just trying to get the land,
the
we're trying to get the.
corner staking
Yeah,
instead?
yes, we're trying to get where the property lines are defined.
Okay, 'cause, well, you say survey, that's about a 10 times more costly proposition than staking. You get about $100 a pole for stakes, but do you know the survey cost on it?
Not enough property with that, I guess.
There's
Survey.
some
I mean, it's
strange
platted
easement.
property, so
well,
I
there's
don't know
some-
why you would survey it.
And if you look
Yeah.
at the plat, there's some there's some weird
Right. When you-
additions to property.
The way the map lays out doesn't, there's some goofy things going on that we just wanted to have some.
West side.
Well, it's an old neighborhood. It was all done by hand, so we're at the
Right.
mercy of whoever was tipping the bottle, drawing the map that day.
Yeah, if you could stake it, I mean, if you could find the stakes here, that'd
We
be,
found one right in the front corner on Maple.
Yeah.
But the other ones.
that's a great starting point.
Hard to see.
And talking with Mach 4, they had done some other surveys in that area, and the legal descriptions are off from what the maps actually show, so they're.
Oh, boy, okay.
We want to
Is
be
that
sure.
house
the
We just want to
House
be sure.
boundaries.
The house is empty,
It is.
and you had asked us to come back with a report on what we're going to do with it, and we're not ready to do that yet. So we're
Right,
still
we're-
doing some due diligence, so we're going to come back to you next month.
I understand on Broadway is talking to some other homeowners in that block to,
Oh, yeah, and we actually heard there might be someone interested in doing live work
yeah.
there as well, which would be
So
great.
we've
Then we
been
can
kind of
just,
getting some feelers out
Is it
there.
zoned okay for that?
yes,
Yep,
office
it is
residential.
zoned, so.
All right.
Also, if you guys want to after this meeting, we can go take a look at it, if you guys wanted to walk through it, so. It
I
kind
don't
of,
know if it's going on. Your house? Tag along to that.
yeah, it was kind of, after our last meeting with On Broadway and the Neighborhood Association, is you kind of get a different feel for the project when you're actually inside, so.
So you're trying to guilt us into
No.
going? Yeah, it worked on me.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it really did, didn't it?
All right, thank you. What's project metrics?
Matrix.
Matrix.
So this
Sorry about
comes
that.
out of, actually, item number 1 on the agenda that went through Finance Committee, and then just talking about the updates between staff and the RDA and council. What we had proposed was a project matrix, and just if there's any other questions or additional things, Basically, that twice a month would submit to RDA members and council confidentially an update on our projects. I think, going back to, I know some previous directors did council reports. I think it's just trying to balance where things are at. And also sometimes, we have a term sheet, but then don't talk about it for 6 months and just, what we're working on or where those projects may be. With that to include, the project location, and finance was added also the aldermanic district, description of the product, the status, and then the next action and what committee it would be going to. A lot of it's going to be coming here, some of it may be going to planning, and then anticipated dates for those things. So with that, just.
We're getting there, we're moving up, but then
Yep.
you became very busy with.
People want to do things here, so it's
Yes.
just trying to get things done. But I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
look, it's important that we just make sure that we're all on the same page, and you can anticipate,
Right.
especially if you do have questions about some of these projects that, look, I've hopefully been pretty open door about coming to talk to me, but if you don't know it's coming, you don't know to come knock on that door. So I just want to make sure that we're having that relationship in terms of communication, so that probably twice a month, and probably with just figuring out the timing, give an update on those projects.
Are you able, and this isn't a big deal, but are you able, how are you sending those now, paper?
What I would do is probably send those via email as an attachment.
Oh, I was hoping you could send it as a document, as a Word, or something, so that we can make our own notes.
Oh, you want a hard copy?
No,
Oh.
a Word document, Word document
Word
electronic.
document.
I can go into the
Sure.
Word document.
Yeah.
And make my own notes in blue.
Okay. I've got it set up on a spreadsheet. Is a spreadsheet okay?
Spreadsheet's okay.
Okay.
Excel works for me.
Kind of a spreadsheet nerd, so.
All right.
That's good.
I knew the second part, nerd, but the spreadsheet part.
It's, yeah. I can't become too
I know,
predictable, right?
no bow tie
Keep you
today.
guys on your
This
toes.
whole meeting I've been throwing
Right.
out.
I know, it's
Disappointed.
kind of scary. Why is he turning on us like that?
Hey, can't become stale, so.
Kind of related, but
Yeah, I saw some.
but not entirely, but every year Cheryl used to give us a map of properties owned, those sort of things.
So Ken is actually working on it.
Okay.
Yep, and that's a project for both RDA and EDA. We're going through literally any city property that has City of Green Bay or Redevelopment Authority on it. And Ken is going through and working with every department to see every single property that we have. Because I think there's some,
City parcels
Right.
that we're not aware of because
Yep.
it didn't go through the RDA, but it might be leftover right of way that
Yep.
actually we could maybe build on.
Sure.
And there's also, right now, the list kind of, it looks deceptive with how many properties the city actually owns, because everyone in the city looks at it as one property, but
Oh.
it's currently parceled off
I see.
into.
Sure.
So I'm kind of looking at that as well, as what we can kind of
Although
put
very
together as
informative,
one
so it'd be
property.
great.
Consolidate.
Some parts, exactly, so it doesn't look like the
Then that'd be
city
next month,
owns
that's it. That'd be next
500
month, that's
properties.
it.
it's gonna be
Yeah.
this spring.
You know,
Oh, be great. That'd be very
So-
good. Thank you.
It's very tedious.
It's that old rugby group,
Anything
they
else?
put all this together.
Nothing on down our thing? No.
Look, the action at the last council meeting was to hold for an additional 45 days. The developer has been continuing to work. Again, our interest is to secure a senior lender to keep that project moving forward.
Yes.
We've discussed through, and I think there's a variety of options to keep that
Okay.
moving forward. Again, I mean, our money, both the TID and the HUD 108 loan, along with all the other junior investors, best way to keep that secure is to get the project open, and they are all on
Absolutely.
board trying to work
Absolutely.
to get that done.
Good.
So even if they're unable to achieve the senior lender in the next 45 days or whatever, so that, you think there's still some options that, to keep the project?
Yes.
We gotta keep it.
Or move the project?
Yep, and I think, look, in terms of being on the same page, where we're at in terms of our position and the others have committed to trying to work through this.
You have to, because
Yep.
we're in no man's land.
Correct, yep.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Well, I appreciate being reelected for 18,000 shares.
There's some high expectations here. I think.
Yeah, I realize.